Hello everyone, my birth name is Catalina de Errauso, but many may also know me by my other name, which is Antonio de Errauso. I'm speaking to you guys to explain why I thought I was allowed to assume the gender of a man and just explain the history of my life. So I was born in the year 1585 in the northern Spanish town of San Sebastián to my parents Miguel de Erauso and Maria de Galarraga y Arce. I was originally raised with my siblings in the family home until the age of 4, where I was sent to live in a convent to become a nun. However, I just felt that life was not for me. I felt I was meant for something more. So I decided to take things into my own hands, and in the year 1600, when I was about 15 years old, I was able to leave and start a new life. I had no idea where to go or what to do, since it had been so long that I had stepped outside of or even seen the outside world. One of the first things I did was get rid of my old nun's habit and cut my hair short. I was preparing to assume the identity of a man in order to disguise myself. However, what I did not realize was how much being a man would benefit me and how many privileges came along with it. I was able to do stuff that I would not be able to do if I was still presenting as a woman. I would have never gotten the opportunity to work on my uncle's boat, see the New World, or even step foot on a battlefield if it were not for my male persona allowing me the privileges that every man is granted naturally through birth. In my time period, women were not given the same liberty to act as men would. Women at the time were only seen as honorable if they were devoutly religious and loyal to the will of man. Although I will say I used that privilege to do crimes, and I most likely would have never done those crimes if I was Catalina. One of these crimes I mentioned in the beginning of my memoir. On page 14 I wrote that I gave Señor Reyes a slashing worth 10 stitches on his face, as well as stabbed him on his left side a day after he had threatened me at the theater to cut my face wide open. Even though it was his fault and he did initiate the confrontation at the theater, I retaliated and I acted in a way I thought was typical male behavior. I believe this helped me allow to keep my disguise because I was able to blend in with other men. I was acting in a way that was not woman-like, so it allowed me to keep that disguise. Another reason I believe I was allowed to keep presenting as a man was because of my war hero status. I was known as an honorable soldier. One of the most notable examples of my military service was when I went to rescue our flag from the enemy. On page 20 of my memoir, I wrote, "When I saw the flag being carried off, I rode after it, with 2 horsemen at my side, through the midst of the great multitude of Indians, trampling and slashing away and taking some wounds of return." I believe that this instance showed how I was willing to put my life on the line for my country and how much I cared for it. And patriotism is a very man quality, many would believe at that time. So I believe that helped in keeping my disguise. The multiple crimes I had committed had led me to being found out and to me writing my confession that was later turned into my memoir. To get out of significant jail time, I was able to use my knowledge as a student at the convent and was able to plead sanctuary to avoid being taken to jail for a long time. If we're being realistic, I should have been hanged and killed because that was the law and mindset in that time period. Many didn't approve of a woman dressing and acting as a man and vice versa. It went against society norms. I believe that this was one of the reasons why I was saved from my death sentence, because the bishop I was confessing to forgave me for presenting as a man since I had remained virgin and relatively religious. On page 6, I described the test that was given to me to verify that I was a woman, as well as the bishop's reaction. He seemed touched that I had kept my virginity and embraced me lovingly. Being religious and pure is what saved me from punishment, and acting like a man is what allowed me to continue presenting as a man. Now that I have explained my reasoning for why I was allowed to assume the gender of a man, I will now move on to the topic of pronouns. I know many are wondering what to refer to me in regard to my pronouns, so I will address the question right now. I will say I do respond to both pronouns of she, her, and he, him, but I do prefer the pronouns he, him. I was only referred to as she, her pronouns after I was given the choice to confess or being punished, and before I transitioned into a man. If I had not been forced to confess, I still would have continued to be Antonio and continue on my life of adventures. Instead, I was sent back to the Covenant and later to dine and talk with royalty about my experience, but as Catalina, not as Antonio. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you guys enjoyed.